We're now on the beach in St Bees, enjoying the fantastic weather and the beautiful coastline. This is the last view of the sea that we're going to have for about 190 miles. So I thought we'd mark the occasion. We have some sheep here to help us celebrate. We're now heading inwards to Clear to Moor and then Ennerdale. See you a little later on.
Yeah.
Cut. Now looking across, you can just see St Bees Head on the left of the picture there. This is that's the climb we've just come up. You cannot really see the steepness of it from here, unfortunately, because of the undulating of the hills, but that was one hell of a climb. And I'm absolutely wet through and exhausted. You can see from the brightness of the picture how bright the sun is, and it is equally hot. Scanning around more quickly, you can see the Lake District which we are heading into over there, and somewhere in that direction, again a little too low down to see, is Ennerdale and Ennerdale Bridge, where we are currently headed. Just to complete the picture, we come into view of Sellafield Power Station and back to the trig point at the Cairn rather, and St Bees.
So yes, Ennerdale Bridge.
I have to confess, I made a couple of mistakes on the map that day, didn't I? And I took us up a few hills in the wrong direction.
I think it was only the one hill you took us up in the wrong direction, and then all I got was this flapping Johners. I was like, oh, sorry, it's up there that way, and I was like.
It was incredibly hot though, and I think we did about 15 miles that first day, didn't we? Then we went to that pub in Ennerdale, didn't we? Had a couple of pints and you had a couple of drinks, and then
was that the posh pub?
It was quite posh. I had a couple of pints of Guinness. I can't remember. It was quite a nice pub.
Yeah, it was quite a well kept pub, I suppose.
Yeah, and then we went on to the campsite, which was basically a farm with a field.
School.
Yeah, it was opposite the school. Yeah. That's right. And then I just snapped the tent pole, putting the tent up.
Pitch of rain.
One of those just absolutely awful moments when all you want to do is crawl into your sleeping bag, and suddenly you're faced with the lack of tent.
Here we are on the second day of walking, and we are now about 2 or 3 miles into the day's hike, standing on the shore of Ennerdale Lake. As you can see, the hills all around us are quite spectacular.
I think it was cooling down on the third day, because my memory of the third day isn't exactly that it was overly swelteringly hot. It was just that it was overpoweringly long.
I think it was a combination. It was still hot, but it was the climb the combination of heat and the excessive climb. It was the biggest climb on the third day. But it started quite easy, didn't it? I mean, I felt, despite the fact we had a bad
false sense of security. So you started really well. We were all set for it. And then your little bit of map reading, it's just over that ridge. And it was like, when we got to the ridge, no, well, I might have meant that ridge.
I think the thing that struck me was how badly I'd sort of prepared that particular day's route was when we...
With the fact when we had custard to eat when we were at the top of the hill.
That family, that old guy was like, oh, where are you going tonight?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're going to Rostway. Are you kidding me? Yeah, we're going to Rostway. Today, you never get there today. Like, well, we've read it, we're stuck up here otherwise. I think that was when it sort of struck the first time that we really had, well, I'd misjudged how long that would take. I mean, in fairness, you know, obviously I planned the thing from the book, from Wainwright's Coast to Coast, so it is something that's doable. But I don't know whether Wainwright did it himself with the size of the pack that we did it. But the pub, you know, you've done a hike like that, and you get to a village and you just look for the pub automatically.
It's always locals only. Oh, we don't know you're talking around here.
We had to knock on the door and beg for them to let us in because we were just exhausted. Still, that was an experience. I think that was one of the defining moments. Sort of, well, after that, it's not going to get any harder.
I think that was the only campsite I didn't use. There facilities in, you know.
There weren't any facilities.
I thought it was the cold shower facilities. There
was a cold toilet block. There wasn't a shower there.
Get off my land.
Well, this will be our first time to the Lake District for several years. And here we go onto the motorway. Put your seatbelt on then. Might be in trouble. Greetings. How are you?
Yeah, good to see you.
Hail.
Hi.
Dr. Livingston, I presume.
Yes.
And here's Matt.
Hello.
How are you feeling, Matt?
Oh, not bad.
Not bad.
Tired, but you know.
Obviously, once we've met Phil, it was quite a simple task just to walk down into the next valley into Grasmere. We've done what was certainly the hardest bit, and even if it was difficult later on, it wasn't going to get any harder.
Are you alright there, Matt?